It is a privilege and a pleasure to introduce you to this incredible family, to Fred Haise, Apollo 13 astronaut. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Paul. Good to join you today.
You look fit and trim. I think you could still step in a plane and fly a couple. I'm reading some stuff and have for a long time, and followed your career. Just an incredible career. I think we are the final generation as far as boomers are concerned, and the greatest generation, to go back and look at that moment when you had mandatory draft, and you got that call or that note in the mail saying that Uncle Sam wants you. And at that moment, you had to make a decision. Would you go and try to find something that fit you, or just whatever they put you? And that's a decision most people living today in the United States of America don't have, because we don't have the draft anymore. But you wanted to be a journalist for the most part, and my understanding is you were kind of scared of flying. So explain that to me. How'd that work out?
No, I was in school, in high school, got interested through being a sports editor of the high school newspaper. And the first 2 years of community college then was Perkinston Junior College in South Mississippi. 2 years I majored in journalism. But no, I was not scared of flying. I just didn't know anything about it. I'd never been in an airplane in my life of any sort, not even sitting in it on the ground. So no, that wasn't because I was scared of flying. I didn't know anything about it.
I got you. So what did you served the U.S. Marine Corps as a fighter pilot and became comfortable with flying? I understand that. How did that work into? Were they just choosing some people, and how did you work into the astronaut program?
Well, I got there by working for. When I started, I thought I was going to work for NACA, which was before NASA. That was involved in testing aircraft to look at improvements for performance and other changes that might enhance safety in aircraft. And NACA had been formed in the 1930s for NASA. There were a number of NASA centers, NACA centers around the country. And it had become NASA at the time I applied to Lewis Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio, now named Glenn, after John Glenn. And I started there as a test pilot, actually 3 years behind Neil Armstrong. Neil started at the same center, and he moved on to Flight Research Center at Edwards, which was the big flight test facility for NASA. And I followed him 3 years later, and after he had joined the astronaut program. And I thought hard about joining the astronaut program. I was having so much fun flying, a lot of different test programs at the same time at Flight Research Center. And Neil had come back one time and talked to us in the pilot's office. And we asked him, what's it like being an astronaut? And he said, well, you sit in a lot of meetings, you sit in the simulator a lot, and there's not much good flying. So I had to think hard about joining the astronaut program, but the thing that got me to do it was just thinking about possibly going to the moon. It just seemed like an incredible adventure. So that's what made me apply, and I got accepted in 1966.
In 66, Fred, what were they telling you how long it was going to be? In other words, effectively, you can expect us to make the final decision, and we're going to step on the moon. This was 66. Did they give you a number of how long that would be?
No one knew. No one knew how long it would be. Like most things you are inventing the first time, you don't know how they work. And as we saw, we had a serious problem when we killed a crew on the launch pad. So that caused a considerably recycle, thinking about the design, in fact, and redid the design for the hatch assembly, as well as we modified the protocol for wiring of the vehicles, both of them, not just the capsule, but also the landing craft, the lunar module.
For you folks who don't know, Fred was one of, I think, 19 new astronauts selected from that group. You flew as part of the lunar module pilot, and it was aborted during the Apollo 13 lunar mission in 1970. Tell me what your memories are of that.
Well, thinking back at the time of the explosion, which we certainly knew something bad had happened. We didn't know what it was. In fact, for a while, no one on the ground knew what it was. My first feeling was mostly just disappointment. I knew immediately from looking at the instrument panel we had lost one of two oxygen tanks, type 2, and that meant an abort. So I knew without knowing anything else that we were going to abort, and I would lose the chance to land on the moon. I was to land on the moon with Jim Lovell, and just losing one half of a system component like that, a major system, meant you came home as soon as possible. So it was going to be an abort of some sort. But gradually, a slow leak developed in the second tank, which we worked hard to troubleshoot for about an hour, trying different things to stop the leak, and nothing was figured out between us and people on the ground. And that's when I knew this was life-threatening. Jim Lovell and I moved to power up the spacecraft we were going to land on the moon with, and use it as a stopgap, if you will, to get us back home. That gave us time to work the problems. Except we had a challenge of making a 2-day vehicle last for 4 days.
It is amazing when you watch some of the history on that and the films and everything else. How close were you to the moon? What was your ETA on the moon when this happened?
Well, we looped around the moon for what was called a gravity turn to get us back in the right direction. Because at the time this happened, we would have not gotten back to Earth. We were going in the wrong direction. But it got us back to loop around the room, and we passed over the backside at a little over 130 miles above the surface.
Wow!
As we went out. Yeah.
That is absolutely amazing. When that was your first trip into space, was it not?
It was, yes.
What were your thoughts, Jim? Did it change you, your philosophy of life? I mean, because that's something 90.9 people on the face of the earth don't get to see that and experience that. Is it still something you hold on to? Did it change you?
No, it did not. I think a couple of people maybe got influenced a little bit in a religious sense, but if you understand astronomy and the size and scope of the universe, which opened up even bigger with the recent Webb telescope shots.
Yeah.
Going to the moon is not going very far. So, like I said, to me, it was just, like I said, it was a great adventure. Yeah. And in fact, when I got back within 6 weeks, Deke Slayton assigned me to my next job. I was a backup commander to Apollo 16, and at the time I thought I was going to get to go back on 19. But unfortunately, NASA canceled 18 and 19, so I didn't get to go back.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Fred, because I was watching a whole documentary. I think I got in a rabbit hole and started watching it for an hour and a half, 2 hours. The Jim Webb telescope, how that was put together, the technicians, the amount of unbelievable American ingenuity to do things like this, space travel. And I was watching some of the first pictures come through, and when you said the moon is next door, I mean, that's like a suburb when you start talking about the infinity. Yep. And when you start looking at those new pictures that came in, and you can't even see Earth, you think how inconsequential we are in the scope of things. I mean, we are, you talk about little ants, we are just meaningless out there, and we think the universe revolves around us. But if you don't have Almighty God to hold on to at this particular time, that meaningless is a scary thing. Can you spend a couple of extra minutes with us?
What's that?
I said, can you spend another segment with us? Can you hold on for a second?
Sure can.
Okay. Back more with Fred Haise, Apollo 13 astronaut, when we come back after a quick break. Hang on. It was probably on the cassette tape or the 8-track. if they were piping music into, it was Frank Sinatra, Fly Me to the Moon. Fred Haise is my guest this morning, Apollo 13 astronaut. Fred, you always wonder is if they did not cancel that, you would have had a chance to step on the moon and be one of the very few that's done that. And I know that's got to be a lot of regret. But also some regret is there from you that we didn't continue that program? And if we did, where would we be now in 2022 with development on the moon? Would that be worth it?
Well, the continuation of just the Apollo program, originally we're going to have 20 missions to the moon, 20 missions involved in Apollo. So beyond 17, which this December celebrates its 50th anniversary, the last one we flew, we would have only flown 3 more missions. So we would have landed in different places and sampled and collected different rocks at different places. But, I doubt seriously that would have affected anything in the big picture. And I think that was a combination of the reduced funding for NASA from Congress. And secondly, the thought of the risk versus the gain, that at least on the administrative side, they felt it was really worth going back and picking up a few more rocks at different places that made NASA also decide they should cancel those last missions.
Was it a factor of cost and danger as far as doing away with the shuttle itself and having go back to a different method? Was that part of that decision?
Well, certainly it was cost, although the cost wouldn't have been that great because we had the hardware pretty much built. That's those artifacts now you see, one at Kennedy, one at Huntsville, Alabama, and we have one here at Houston, Texas. So that's the leftover hardware. And the first stage, actually, that I would have flown on Apollo 19 is at Infinity Science Center down on the Gulf Coast.
How about that?
That was the last one built at the Michoud plant in New Orleans.
It's always remarkable, and I've been there several times, to the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., the Air and Space Museum, an incredible place, and every family ought to take their kids there. But it's this dichotomy, this irony, that you look at all the old stuff, and then you start looking at the Space Museum and everything old, and you think, wait a minute, we just stopped that. Where's the new part? And it really is sad that that's where it ended at that particular time. For folks who don't know, Fred Haise accumulated, and it says it here, it may be wrong, 9,300 hours flying time. That's quite a bit, and including 6,200 hours in jets. When's the last time you were up?
The last time I was up was probably 1982. I had joined the Grumman Corporation as vice president of space programs in New York. And I got so busy with the work I had to do that was part of my job description that I wasn't flying as often as I knew I needed to be proficient. Flying airplanes is not like riding a bicycle. You really need practice on a regular basis, particularly where I was in the Northeast in New York, fighting wind and weather occasionally. So pilot needs to fly more than I was flying, and I decided it wasn't safe really anymore and hung it up.
Your perspective on the privatization of the space industry, you take a look at people like SpaceX. What's your thoughts on that?
I think SpaceX has done an incredible job. Now, they had a rough start. NASA had to give some funding SpaceX to keep them going. But now they're really pretty self-sufficient. NASA obviously contracts for rides to get people and cargo up and down to the space station, but they're flown a lot of launches on their own. He's trying to build this new system. Some people don't like it with all of the objects he's putting in space, particularly astronomers. They say they're blocking their view, but he's made, I think, 39 launches now, something like that. And, they've been great.
I look at where we're going in the future on this one, and how long do you think? Because I think we're 2 or 3 years away from going back to the moon. I've heard different numbers on that.
Yes, Artemis is the program you're referring to that has the goal of putting people back on the moon. they're hoping to obviously to continue it and expand it in a way that would allow the building actually permanent lunar base, much like you have bases right now in Antarctica year round. And I think Norway, Russia, and ourselves have permanent installations on Antarctica operational right now in the dead of winter. And so they were thinking more on that line to do some learning on how to logistically support that kind of facility and operations year round at that kind of in that kind of environment at the moon. Thinking there'll be some learning curve to go to Mars at some point in the future.
How differently will it look? How differently will the equipment, the implements look as far as the landing module and everything else? Will they be quite similar?
For Artemis, it's really
for them to land in.
I'm sorry.
How much different will they look from when Glenn landed, as far as the landing module and et cetera?
Well, I don't know. It's not built yet. They're in the process now of the design development of the pieces. Now, SpaceX will have 2 launches involved in the mission. Plus, NASA has a big new rocket that's equivalent of the Saturn V that's also supporting the mission. As well as the European Space Agency has a module that's also involved in the program.
You stay in touch with any of the guys? Still maybe hear from them?
Do I keep in touch with no? The only support I do for NASA today is through their education department. I speak at children programs they have in the summertime. They have teachers who are science and math type teachers, groups that they support, at least at Johnson Space Center. And I speak to them, have for the last 4 years at events here in Houston. And of course, by Zoom, I've done a lot of astro camps at museums to again talk mostly with the young children. I hope to inspire them to make the best of their life, whether it's in the space program or not.
Yeah. I have a brother-in-law. I haven't spoken to him in a while. Who was on the buggy to design that. He came out of the Navy. Went to that program, and he spent a lot of time in Flagstaff where they were testing that buggy out at the crater. And I think he also went to Chile for a while, but that's a part of our childhood. And it's a remarkable part just to sit there and watch the men on the moon. And some of the old-timers still wouldn't believe it when we told them that we have people walking on the moon. Man, it's been a pleasure and a privilege talking to you, sir. You seem at 88 years old, sprite, and ready to take on the world. So congratulations to you. Any final thoughts, sir?
No, I just hope we get some of those young people to grow up and with talent to work a lot of the challenges that we have today and maybe even bigger ones in the future. I'm hoping to help a few of them think about getting in line to help out.
Well, you have been a tremendous example with an outstanding and unbelievable career coming out of Biloxi, Mississippi, and we thank you, sir, for spending the time with us. Fred Haise,
all right.
Apollo 13 astronaut.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much.